Welcome back to Talk of the Town on 99.7, 1450 WHTC and WHTC.com.
And we welcome you back to WHTC's Talk of the Town for this Wednesday, June 24th. I'm Gary Stevens. We'll be open line following the 11 o'clock news block. But we are joined on the other side of our Zoom connection with Allegan County Prosecutor Myrene K. Koch. She joins us on the Zoom connection. Myrene, good morning and welcome back to Talk of the Town. It's been a while.
Good morning, Gary. Thank you for having me back.
Yeah, and we'll be talking to her about her in her role as prosecutor, but we'll also be talking to her as a candidate. You are seeking a second 4-year term as Allegan County Prosecutor. And so if you have a question for Juanita, that was last hour. We do have that podcast on our website at WHTC.com. But if you have a question for Myrene, she'll be happy to take it at 395-1450, 395-1450. First of all, the first 4 years as prosecutor of Allegan County. Tell us a little bit about how you have seen your office operate and move during the time that you had to replace a long-standing prosecutor for many, many years in Allegan County.
Well, Gary, I won the election in 2018, and it was for a 2-year term.
Okay,
it was a partial term.
Oh, by the way, thank you for correcting me. I thought it was. I didn't think it was that long ago when you had to replace Fred, but I wanted to be safer than sorry. Thanks for correcting me.
No, that's okay. Things have been going really well. You know, we have done some great things in our office, and I'd like to share a couple of those with you if I can. We've had some really proud innovations in our office. One of the things we did was we added a canine advocate to our staff. His name is Joey. He's a yellow Labrador. He came to us from the CAP program, which is Canine Advocate, and also Leader Dogs for the Blind. He had approximately $40,000 worth of training. I was able to get him at no cost to Allegan County. I was also able to get a grant that covers some of his vet and grooming bills. But he's able to help children when they have to come into court and testify. And there are many prosecutors' offices and agencies around the state that have these canine advocates, including Ottawa County. We were able to get a large increase in our grant due to the large number of victims that we've served has increased due to crime. And so we were able to add some staff that can help with services for victims. And again, that was at no cost to the county. We've done some general things in the office too, like updating our lobby with gently new to us furniture from storage in the county. And we've had staff pitch in to make things a little more homey for victims and their families when they have to stay. I can tell you as a military wife for 21 years, certainly it is very important to learn how to stretch your budget. A couple other things that we've done or I've done in our office. I was elected to the Prosecuting Attorneys Association of Michigan board. It is an election by the other 82 prosecutors in the state. I'm very proud of that to seek their respect. I've been endorsed by many of them as well, including Ron Franz from Ottawa County and former prosecutor for a long time in Allegan County, Fred Anderson. One of the other things that I'm also proud of is that for the last 2 years, I have been elected as the chair of the Allegan County Law Enforcement Council. So that is all of the leaders of the police agencies in Allegan County elected me to that position. And I feel very honored to have earned their respect for this time and endorsement by many of them, including Sheriff Frank Baker as well.
If you got a question again for Myrene Koch, who is the Allegan County Prosecutor, she'll be happy to answer it at 395-1450, 395-1450. 2 days ago, the man who would like to take your job was on these airwaves. He made some accusations. You probably have seen those on his webpage. I don't need to repeat them at this time. Those who wish to hear what he had to say can go to our website. And also, we did have a Zoom conversation with him. Obviously, some constituents and some voters might say, what do you answer to some of the claims that Mr. Villar has brought up against you as in terms of expenses, in terms of maybe some ethical questions as well?
Well, you know, one of the things I think is important as a prosecutor, but as a politician as well, is to run a positive campaign to show my results, my passion and dedication for service to Allegan County. And I think that's really one of the things we need to focus on. I've heard some of the things he says. I have no hidden agenda. This is not a game to me. I'm not trying to jockey for some other position. I went to law school to become a prosecuting attorney, and from day one, that's what I wanted to do, was serve. He talked a little bit about statistics, and the difficulty is he only gave one small glimpse of one small piece of statistics. He doesn't talk about everything that there is. So when looking at crime in Allegan County, yes, crime has been up, felonies have gone up, but in the last few-year period, we've had more than 1,000 requests from law enforcement based on either arrests or warrant requests for us to look at. So that's not me manufacturing cases. It's coming from the police who are doing their job to protect our county and make it safe. The primary felony that we've seen an increase in is with regard to methamphetamine. Unfortunately, in looking at those statistics, in 2015, we had approximately 172 cases involving meth in Allegan County. Last year, in 2019, we had 381. So when you look at those types of things, it's important as a prosecutor to try to provide help and treatment for those people, and that's what we do. We look at diversion programs for first-time offenders. We use our specialty courts for treatment. But it's a very powerful addiction to that drug, and it can ruin lives and communities. So we have to take a very firm stance on those kinds of cases. I know that, he also made some accusations with regard to ethics and different kinds of things and cost to the taxpayers. Certainly, if you look at some of the things he's done with repeated Freedom of Information Act requests, those are costs to the county that are unneeded. He's made claims of corruption between the prosecutors and the judge. He's made claims of the county commissioners not doing their jobs and accusations of jail overcrowding. All of those things are truly false exaggerations of maybe something small that may be there, but falsely exaggerated. I can go on if you'd like.
That's okay. I just wanted to, again, I didn't want to make this well, he said this and she says this, because frankly, the voters will decide, and I want to make sure I'm right on this. They will decide in November with your race, or is this a primary for the, will you have to run on August 4?
It is a primary in August 4. There is no Democrat running in November.
So in other words, whoever wins the Republican primary will probably, might as well swear that person in and get him or her on the job
Yes.
or right away. If you have a question for Allegan County Prosecutor Myrene K. Koch, she'll be happy to take it at 395-1450, 395-1450. Quick housekeeping question, Myrene. Do you have a website for the campaign, or should I put instead the connection to the Allegan County Prosecutor's webpage at AlleganCounty.org on that?
No, the campaign does have a website. It is MyreneCook2020.com.
Mm-hmm.
And we have a lot of information on there. We're happy to share that information. There is also an email that is attached to that. One of the things I would point out is that we had to change our website after the last election. If you were to Google the old website or even myname.com right now, it would be directly linked to my opponent's webpage. So I don't think that's entirely honest on his part, but I wanted to point that out in case anyone had the old website. So please use the new one with 2020.
And we'll put a link to that on our webpage at WHTC.com when we put our podcast together here in I'd say about 20 minutes or so. I'm pretty fast about getting those things up. 395-1450, 395-1450. I want to step aside from the politics or the race itself, and I want to ask you a couple of questions as the Allegan County Prosecutor in this day and age right now. And I say this day and age over the last, since Memorial Day. The landscape has changed a lot. And there are people who are distrustful of law enforcement. People are distrustful of the judicial system. They feel that they are not being represented. We have a case going on in Minneapolis right now involving George Floyd. And that case is going on. It's still, it's an active case, obviously. There is some people who believe that if the verdicts or if the rulings in that case do not go a certain way, justice is not served, and they'll take justice into their own hands. With that type of political, I don't want to say political, but this type of atmosphere, Myrene, how tough is it right now to try to be balanced, to try to be fair in the judicial system, especially in the criminal judicial system right now, which is right now being perceived, and if you want to use the old line, perception is reality. It's perceived right now that the judicial system is not really that just.
Well, in looking at what happened in Minneapolis, or in the other states, certainly what happened in that case is deplorable. That should have never happened. But when I look around Allegan County, and I work very closely, and I have over the last 18 years, I've been in the prosecutor's office with our local law enforcement agencies. I don't see those things happening here. Our law enforcement officials in Allegan County are very fair. They go out every day to do their job, to protect the citizens, to defend things, and to make sure that when they do have a case, that they do it the right way. And that's looked at from a series of checks and balances, not only from their own internal reviews, but also going through our office to make sure it looks like there's enough probable cause to look at a case. There's oversight by the judiciary as well. In Allegan County, I know there's been at least 3, I believe, protests with regard to the situations that had happened and the atmosphere, if you will, about what some have as thoughts about what's been going on. And all of those protests, I was very pleased to see, were very peaceful. They had a statement and they made their statements, but they did it in a peaceful way. And I think that is something we really need to look at, is you may be able to try to evoke change, and you want to do that. And I certainly think that is warranted. All of those in a position in law enforcement, in my position, we all need to listen to our communities and see if there's something we need to change to make things better. There is always room for improvement. But I also saw our local law enforcement here in Allegan County joining in with those protesters. In the protest in the city of Allegan, I know that the chief of police bought pizza and brought water for the protesters to show that, they understood what they're doing, and they wanted to give back and show them how important this was to them as well. So I would hope that if someone has a statement to make, they would do so peacefully, because I think using violence as a way to make the statement just unfortunately can make things much worse.
Let me ask you a question as a prosecutor. A lot of people have seen what has happened in Minneapolis, seen what has happened in Atlanta most recently, but other situations, very high-profile criminal cases. But we're seeing more and more of people having maybe preconceived notions for law enforcement or against law enforcement, based on some of the things they've seen or some of their own experiences. How tough is it now? And I posed this question to Juanita Borgonegra last hour, and I'm going to pose it to you, Myrene. How tough is it right now is to try to, in a criminal case especially, get a jury seated that will be completely unbiased, that will only rule on the facts presented to them in that particular case, and try to keep preconceived bias for or against one way or the other? How tough is it nowadays to try to get a jury of one's peers in that situation?
Well, I think it can be a tough situation because depending on the nature of the case, there could be preconceived notions there too, whether it deals with law enforcement, sexual assault, domestic violence, whatever the topic may be. And so you're always looking at preconceived notions that may be there. The hope is that we look at the truth of what they're saying, we look at how they feel, and that they're honest with us. If there is a bias, we would hope people would be able to say that right up front, so that we can look for those jurors who are going to look only at the evidence that is presented in the cases.
Yeah, it's easy. I hate to say it's easier said than done. Be honest with you, Myrene, because it's getting tougher and tougher, and the more we see of not only these incidents that do happen, people get, they have a notion of justice, trying to, get just justice, but also, and now these shows have been canceled, but you can take a look at Cops or Live PD, that also influences as well. It's a far different cry from, say, a few generations ago when the late Bill Tallman playing Hamilton Berger and Perry Mason could do certain things that, let's just say, prosecutors don't do these days, really.
You have to be very fair, and you have to look at how is justice served in this case, and I think that's the important takeaways. That should be the focus. Make sure that everything is done right, and if it's not done right, then we need to look at that. We need to fix it.
Hope I'm not going to ask a sensitive question, but it might be. How's your
Okay.
How's your relationship with the State Attorney General's office?
Well, it's good. I think the State Attorney General's office has given some advice to local prosecutors throughout this COVID situation. As you and all of your listeners know, there were many, many executive orders issued by the governor's office. And one of the things I tried to do, I thought it was important as the chief law enforcement officer of Allegan County to be present every day at the office and to review those executive orders, because as you know, some of them replaced others, and they replaced secondary and third ones down the line. And so I was there in the office every day, making sure that I understood them and that I could explain not only to our law enforcement those changes, but I also took the time to make summaries for local townships and villages and cities and tried to answer questions from citizens who called and emailed. But there were sometimes those orders were a little tricky to interpret and understand of what was allowed and wasn't allowed. So the Attorney General's office actually had staff members who were available to assist local prosecutors' offices as well.
The reason why I say it was a little touchy, and I prefaced it that way, Myrene, was the fact that I know of some county officials that have had some issues with state officials in their same bailiwick, and part of it might be the political divide, because you are a Republican, and right now the Attorney General, Dana Nessel, along with Governor Whitmer, are Democrats. You don't want to have the partisan situation being involved, especially in trying to execute your office, but we're political animals by nature, and sometimes it does slip in.
Well, it hasn't slipped in as far as I can see with anything we've had to do in Allegan County. The Attorney General's office has done their job to try to assist the best they can, and that's what I've tried to do with our staff and law enforcement as well.
Myrene, you mentioned some of the things you've worked on since you've taken over for Fred Anderson a couple of years ago, and the canine effort to try to help youngsters involved that have to testify in court. What things would you like to do if you are given the mandate by the voters on August 4th for a full term? What things would you like to do over the next 2-4 years or so to be able to maybe improve the prosecutor's office and improve justice in Allegan County?
Well, a couple of the things that we've started initiative-wise, one of which is I've worked with the local schools and superintendents of the school districts to try to make sure that we can educate children about things such as school threats and school safety. That's very important. We've seen a lot of cases throughout the county and the country, actually, that have dealt with either threats or actual shootings. So I think that's really important to take into consideration our children and their safety. Another thing that I started, and unfortunately it got a little bit sidelined due to the COVID crisis, was a regional roundtable with regard to methamphetamine. I reached out to our health department and looking at our numbers for methamphetamine and said, what else can we do? We're doing everything we can with the specialty courts, but what else is there? And so we are just getting that started again now that the restrictions on COVID are loosening up. So I would like to see more of a campaign with regard to education and some sort of marketing to share with the citizens exactly how dangerous drugs can be, particularly methamphetamine, and to try to get a better handle on how we can eradicate that in our county.
A couple of very laudable things, and one thing about meth, and this is something I've been in Ottawa. I've been here at WHTC for 17 and for 18 years already. It'll be 19 in October. Meth was a problem back in 2001 when I first came here. It's still a problem today, and apparently it's not anything that's going to go away anytime soon.
No, we've seen a change though. It used to be we would see the manufacture of methamphetamine with what they would call one-pot methods, trying to manufacture it at home, so to speak. But now we're not seeing as many of those. We see a few, but what we're seeing is the meth is easily accessible. It's trafficked into this area, and it's relatively inexpensive. And so what we see then is that becomes the staple of what everyone is using.
Yeah. So, that I-196 corridor moving up, or the US 131 corridor on the east side of the county. That's an easy highway to do that. The website for the re-election campaign for Myrene Koch is Myrene, MYRENEKOCH MyreneKoch.com.
Actually, it's Myrene Koch 2020.
20, yes.
2020.com.
And I'll put the link to that once I put the podcast of our conversation, Myrene, on our webpage at WHTC.com. Myrene Koch, Allegan County Prosecutor. Thanks for putting up with me today in terms of some of the things I've been trying to get across, but we appreciate your time. We hope to chat with you again soon.
Thank you, and I look forward to coming back and visiting again.
Thank you very much, Myrene Koch, the Allegan County Prosecutor on WHTC's Talk of the Town program.